What's going on, folks? Welcome to our NFC North preseason breakdown. And with me today, I've got Ace. What's going on, Ace?
I'm doing good. What's going on with you?
It's going good. It's going good, man. Um, let's go ahead and get it started. First up on
Uh,
the list, the division champs, 13-3, lost to the Bucks in the NFC Championship up in Green Bay, the Green Bay Packers. They added Blake Bortles to a already competitive QB competition. Uh, departures, I don't know, but this Aaron Rodgers saga is crazy. I don't know what's going to happen with him. And then they drafted Eric Stokes, and then they also drafted Josh Myers. So depending on whatever happens, do you trust Jordan Love to start the season?
um, like start if Aaron Rodgers on the team? No. If Aaron Rodgers is traded, yes. Blake Bortles is not winning that starting job.
I mean,
Yeah, I
they also brought in Chad Kelly, who was the quarterback at Ole Miss
no,
for a while.
no. Mm, I'm not even
Golly.
wasting my time with Chad Kelly.
So it's just so if Aaron Rodgers isn't in the house, it's Jordan Love or
If
bust.
yeah, they invested. It's gonna sound like one of them stupid cliches, but you invested too much. You have to see what you have in Jordan Love. It's been a year.
No,
You have to see what you have in Jordan Love.
you're right. I mean, honestly, I got the question down of, what is their identity? But I honestly could tell you, I don't know what their identity is.
If Aaron Rodgers is traded, they're going ground and pound with Jones and Dillon because you got to remember they lost Jamal Williams too. I think he went to the
Yeah.
Lions.
Yeah.
Somebody else went to the Lions. Their backup quarterback, Tim Boyle, he went to the Lions too, I believe. That's not important.
I honestly do think if Aaron Rodgers does not come back, Devontae Adams is going to drop. His numbers are going to drop significantly in production,
Oh
I think. And like you said, we're going to see the running game mightily increase. And
yeah.
Matt LaFleur is going to have a tough time.
Unless Jordan Love somehow really is Patrick Mahomes 2.0, where he comes out second season looks phenomenal. I think it's
I'll
ground.
believe that when I see it.
Yep. I mean, I didn't. I had thoughts that Patrick Mahomes was going to be what he was, but like to the extent Patrick Mahomes is, you didn't see that until he showed up in that second season. So I have to give Jordan Love, but you have to have some faith in him, I guess. But I really don't. I have to believe it when I see it for him.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. And that now takes us to the Minnesota Vikings. Last season, they went 7-9. They added Rashad Breeland, Nick Vigil, Sheldon Richardson. They lost Dan Bailey and Kyle Rudolph. They drafted Kellen Mond.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so one thing is, do you think Kirk Cousins is holding this team back from reaching their peak?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that. Continue.
Not even more. I was gonna say it's more or less one word for Kirk Cousins because he has his ups and downs, but I think Kellen Mond he could bring that. I won't be surprised if you don't see Kellen Mond this year. I think he will show up some point this season.
I hope
Yes, Kirk,
so.
I really think Kellen Mond's gonna show up. He had a good chemistry with Thielen, but him and Diggs they never clicked really well. I don't think.
They didn't.
Because Dalvin Cook has been carrying that team since Kirk Cousins has been there. When Dalvin Cook is healthy, he is running that offense because Kirk Cousins is, I know game manager isn't a bad label, but in terms of Kirk Cousins, that's a bad label for him
Thank
because
you.
all quarterbacks are essentially managing the game, but to a certain extent, Kirk Cousins doesn't give you that out of the pocket mobile presence. He doesn't have a phenomenal deep ball, and his accuracy fluctuates throughout the season. That's more or less how I could put it.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you said all of that you said. Like you're Kirk Cousins, you've got Dalvin Cook, you've got Stephon Diggs, not Stephon Diggs, you got Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Irv
Yeah,
Smith
Justin Jeff.
Jr. now.
Oh yeah, well, Irv Smith's been there 2 years, and they kept feeding it to Kyle Rudolph, but Kyle Rudolph is gone now, so it's going to be Irv Smith's time.
And you know
And
what?
then Justin Jefferson is coming off of a historical rookie season, So you have no excuses to start the season. You can't start 0-5 again. Because if you start
Exactly.
0-5 again, Kellen Mond's coming in. I don't care
Exactly.
how much money Minnesota gave you guaranteed. It doesn't matter. If you can't go 0-5 again to start that season with the numbers Dalvin Cook was putting up last year, you had no reason to go 0-5.
There's too much talent on this team to go below 500 and not make the playoffs. And with this expanded playoff field, there is no excuse why Minnesota should not be in the playoffs this year. If you ask me, there's too
Absolutely.
much there.
Yeah, they revamped their defense. I mean, last year's fine. You had 2 rookie corners. This year, you got in Breland. I think you brought in another corner, another vet to help out. And they brought somebody else into that defense that you didn't mention. I can't remember who, but I think they brought in somebody else. And then you have Mike Zimmer. He's got to do better than last season. I'd start watching him. I doubt they'd fire him this season, but he can't have another season like what he did last season.
I think he will. I think Kirk Cousins needs to get off his behind. That's what I think it is.
I think it's mostly Kirk Cousins, but Mike Zimmer's got to make that. Has to make that call to take out Kirk Cousins and put it in mind.
I agree. And with that, we're now on to the 8-8 Chicago Bears. They added Andy Dalton, who is going to start actually this season. They lost Kyle Fuller. They drafted Justin Fields. Matt Nagy already said it. Andy Dalton is going to start, barring any injury. He said he's going to start barring any injury. So that's how it's going to go.
Matt Nagy, he says one thing, and then literally a week later, he changes his mind. Remember what he did with Foles and Trubisky last year? That's when I was fed up with Nagy because the Bears, they shouldn't have even made the playoffs, but the only reason why why they were so low was because he didn't give either quarterback enough time to actually get that routine under center. And then Nick Foles, he's like the Lance Stevenson of the NFL. He's only good on one team for some reason. I have no idea why. And he has a flashing pan moment. And he gets like what, 18 million? You have an 18. I don't think they traded Nick Foles out. I think he's still there, isn't he?
I'm not sure. Oh, I think he might still be there.
I think he's $18 million backup. You paid Andy Dalton, what, 10 or 15, I think? One of the two. And then you have Justin Fields on his rookie contract. Justin Fields is going to be that starter by the end of week 10.
Oh.
Or week 5 at least, probably. I think Justin Fields will. I'm a big believer in Justin Fields. I think he's going to, if Andy Dalton doesn't start out like phenomenal or anything, the fans want Justin Fields. They're fed up with how their quarterback situation's been.
See, the thing is with Chicago, they've never had a long-term answer at quarterback. Jim McMahon came in and won them a Super Bowl, but
that was the defense.
So that was the defense in '85. Like the Bears are much like the Bucks when it comes to quarterbacks. Nothing seems to stick to the wall. They'll get a Super Bowl.
A lot of franchises were like that. They didn't have phenomenal quarterback. Look at the Saints. They didn't have a quarterback until Drew Brees. They were bouncing around. I mean, Arch Manning was probably the best one you could say before Drew Brees. And Arch Manning wasn't like phenomenal or anything. He was all right.
Yeah, he was the best player on a very bad team.
Yeah.
Yeah. But with that, we're now on to the 5-11 Detroit Lions. They added Jared Goff. They added Darren Fells. They lost Matthew Stafford. They drafted Penei Sewell.
Penei Sewell.
Yep. So the question is, why was this the worst possible landing spot for Jared Goff?
I didn't expect that question, but I guess you could say the worst way, it was the worst landing spot for Jared Goff. He doesn't fit the Dan Campbell identity. Dan Campbell's more of a Mike Vrabel guy, but Mike Vrabel runs that play action offense, but I think that was more Arthur Smith running that offense. Mike Vrabel's he ran the head coaching, like he oversaw everything and like the team identity. and then he relied heavily on his coordinators, which I think you'll see a lot of what Dan Campbell is doing this
Mm-hmm.
season. Cause I'm a big believer with Dan Campbell, but if unless they run like how they did in Tennessee, rely heavy on that run game, and then use the play action. That's what Jared Goff was best at when he was with Los Angeles. And then once Todd Gurley's knees started to give, you saw the same thing with Jared Goff. He started to decline with Todd Gurley's knees. The run game failed. Jared Goff isn't going to be a guy who's going to throw it 40 times and win you a ball game in a shootout. I mean, I guess he did once against Kansas City in the greatest Monday Night Football game.
Mm-hmm.
Going to be debatable, but he can't do that on a consistent basis. At this point,
I'm
it's been,
with you.
5 years of Jared Goff? 5 years. He was drafted in 2016, 5 years. Most guys, by year 5, I mean, Ryan Tannehill's an exception, but you know what your guy is in 5 years. Jared Goff isn't going to be a gunslinger what Matthew Stafford was for the Lions, but you have some pieces. Wide receiver is going to be a question mark, I think, because you lost both Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay. So
Yeah.
wide receiver is going to be a sort of a question mark, but you have 2 good running backs, I think. You have DeAndre Swift, and I think they have Jamal Williams, I said earlier.
Yeah.
Those 2, if DeAndre Swift takes that next step, I think the Lions will be – I think they might actually – if Chicago doesn't figure out what's going on with them, Detroit might be better than Chicago.
You got a point. I'm actually hoping big for DeAndre Swift, but this is where I kind of find it to be a little bit messed up. Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson both could have gone somewhere else and been successful and been let out of their contracts, but Detroit didn't let them. They let Stafford though. Can you imagine if Barry Sanders had been let loose for free, or been let free, and if Calvin Johnson had been let free, they probably would have played longer in the NFL.
If you beat me to it, I was going to say, yeah, they wouldn't have retired so young. But the problem with Calvin Johnson was Detroit fans always believed he put a curse. The ownership put a curse on them because they didn't want to pay Calvin Johnson like an extension or whatever. So he's like, all right, fine, I'm gonna just retire then. If you're not gonna pay me and you're not letting me out of the contract, I'm gonna just retire, save my body.
I'm gonna go one further. Barry Sanders would probably be the league's all-time leading rusher if Detroit had let him go.
Possibly. I could see it.
Think about it like this. I mean, he finished not too far behind Emmitt Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And Barry Sanders didn't have as good of an offensive line as Emmitt Smith did. Imagine Barry Sanders behind a decent offensive line, an average offensive line.
Yeah.
Barry probably shatters that record.
Mm-hmm. I could definitely see that. I could see that.
I mean, it is what it is. But, before we get up out of here, let me ask you this now. What's your predicted order of finish for this division?
Well, that order depends on what the Packers do with Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers is on the Green Bay Packers week 1 against the New Orleans Saints, I got Green Bay at the top of that division. If not, it's going to be probably Minnesota if they figure out their quarterback position. Because the NFC's North is in shambles right now if Aaron Rodgers gets traded out. I honestly believe that's anybody who can win that division. If Aaron Rodgers gets traded, anybody can win. Because even Detroit, for crying out loud, could probably win that division if Aaron Rodgers gets traded by a long shot. But if Chicago, Matt Nagy doesn't prove it this year, because this is pretty much a prove-it year for Matt Nagy. He's not getting a second year, I don't think. A second year, because look at the Vikings. If Mike Zimmer doesn't go, if Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer don't figure it out, that's going to be a mid-tier team. Detroit, if they play behind Dan Campbell and have an identity early on, they can easily make that playoffs, because it's going to probably be – Aaron Rodgers said it's going to be Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago. It's going to be a coin toss between Chicago and Detroit, because Chicago losing Kyle Floyd is probably big. I mean, they got I think the kid's name is Julian Blackman.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's him. He's a good corner. And then they have Buster Screen, or they cut Buster Screen too. Kind of forgot now. They have an all right defense with Roquan Smith manning the middle, but if they don't figure out the offense, because their offensive line was straight garbage last year. They didn't
Right.
give David Montgomery a single hole to run, so they had no play action. So even if they put Justin Fields, if they don't open lanes for Montgomery, they can't open the offense. So Chicago's mid-tier too, bottom mid-tier. So anybody can win that division.
I feel you. Yeah, I'm gonna go the same way. If Aaron Rodgers comes back, if he comes
It's
back,
Green Bay.
it's Green Bay's division, hands down. If he
Yep.
doesn't come back, I'm going Minnesota, Chicago, Green Bay, Detroit. That's my thing with it.
I can see it.
That's how I'm gonna roll with it. But folks, that's gonna do it for us on this episode. We hope you've enjoyed this NFC North preseason breakdown. As always, follow us on all of our social media platforms. I want to thank Ace for joining me on this episode too. I appreciate you, man.
Thanks for having me. It's been a
Yes,
pleasure.
sir. Yes, sir. And as always, folks, y'all stay safe. Y'all stay blessed. We'll see you on the next episode.